Welcome. You're listening to episode 29 of Pause and Play with Dr. J, the Preventive Vet podcast. On today's show, we bring back special guest, feline trainer and behavior consultant Dr. Marci Koski to talk about the differences between cats spraying and peeing outside of the litter box. We also discuss some common misconceptions. And if you enjoy the Pause and Play with Dr. J podcast, it would mean a lot to us for you to give us a rating and review on iTunes or your preferred streaming platform. And now, let's start the show. Welcome back to another episode of Pause and Play with Dr. J. My name is Mia, and I am your co-host. And I've got Dr. J here with me, and we'll say hello to you in a second. But we also have a very special guest, certified feline behavior and training expert and all-around fun gal, Marci Koski. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me back.
Wonderful. Well, we're so happy to have you. And Dr. J, sorry,
That's all right. I'm used to playing second and third fiddle. I got two young daughters.
There you go. Well, speaking of fun times, you're both fun times. And the last time we all spoke, both of you told me that you could actually talk about litter boxes for hours. And I stepped away from that conversation why? How? What am I missing? I mean, I know I'm not the party animal that I used to be, but this is entirely new territory for me. So we obviously don't have hours to talk about litter box issues right this second on this podcast. However, since you have been gracious enough, Marci, to tell us that you would be happy to talk about them more, we'll have you back on for more. And we're planning on making at least this particular podcast a two-parter. So let's just jump right in. Marci, what's, I guess, your biggest issue that people are coming to you with and saying, help?
Yeah. So with cats, a lot of things in their lives are intertwined, and easily, probably 75% of my clients have cats that are not getting along, and 75% of my clients are having house soiling issues. So there's overlap there. A lot of times, house soiling issues are caused by stress and, things that are not directly impacting the litter box. So that could be things like, a bad relationship with another cat in the home, or, stress in the environment somewhere else, or cats that are outside. There are a lot of reasons why cats might not be using the litter box. So when I work with clients, a lot of times we're addressing multiple issues, and we have to look at the whole picture of what is going on in that cat's house and in that cat's environment. So even though a cat might be peeing outside of its litter box, we're not just going to say, okay, we're only going to fix this thing about the litter box. We're going to change the litter. There are some cases, of course, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, where there's something wrong with the litter box setup that is very easy to change. And maybe that's the only thing you need to do. And then the problem is resolved, and yay, everybody's happy again. But in other ways, a house soiling issue can be much more complicated. So that's why I can talk for hours and hours about litter box issues and house soiling. And I think it's really important that people understand why cats do certain things, because yes, Mia, you're right. House soiling is one of the primary reasons why cats are surrendered to shelters, which is really unfortunate, because in homes, if cats have a house soiling issue, and they go to a shelter, they're labeled as, the cat that pees outside of its box. Mm-hmm. And it could be completely an environmental situation where in a totally different environment, that cat is fine.
Right.
So it's really important that people understand what cats need.
Right. And Dr. J, I'm sure I feel like maybe you're sending me some telepathic messages or something. about some of the serious health issues.
You know me well, Mia. You know me very well. I mean, and the problem for me, and I echo a lot of what Marci was saying, and those are fantastic points. And like she said, really important points, because it does bring cats into shelters, and it actually even brings cats to the vets for euthanasia. There's this toileting outside the litter box and spraying and stuff like that. Usually a lot of vets will try and work through these things, but sometimes people are just at the end of their rope. So if we can prevent them from getting to the end of their rope, if we can prevent these problems and get to a workup sooner and get to a resolution sooner, it's better for everybody. But for me, when cats are going to the bathroom outside of their box, whether it's spraying or inappropriate toileting, what saddens me is that the owner is frustrated. They are potentially having their, parts of their house ruined. They've got other things going on in their life. It's one of the last things that they want to and need to deal with. So I get that frustration. From the cat standpoint, it's also really sad because frequently it's an indication of either a major stress, like Marci was talking about, whether it's like inner cat problem in the house or maybe a stray that's roaming around outside, or, you've just had a new baby to the house or a new puppy, whatever it might be. But as you were saying, Mia, frequently there's an underlying medical reason that we really need to get to the bottom of, because that could be causing your cat pain, discomfort. It could be a medical condition that's going to get progressively worse, could actually land them in the ER. So depending on what's going on, we really need to rule out medical issues first. And it could be anything from arthritis or diabetes developing, or, chronic kidney failure starting to set in. They could have cystitis, inflammation of the urinary bladder. They could actually have crystals and be getting ready to develop a urethral obstruction or urinary obstruction, which anyone who listens to this podcast regularly enough, any opportunity I get to raise awareness of urethral obstruction, I take, and this is not going to be any different. Urethral obstruction is
kind of like a theme song for when you start.
I can pretty much turn any conversation into urethral obstruction in cats.
You need to have like a t-shirt.
Yeah. Ask me about urethral obstruction. I think I'd get some strange looks on the street.
You know what? Either way, I think that's a great idea. And I'm going to look into that. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, no. So I think, the main thing is, when cats aren't, urinating and defecating exclusively in their litter boxes, it causes stress and frustration for everyone. And it could actually be an indication that there's a medical problem, including potentially pain for the cat. So really, recognizing that, getting, the first step is talking to your vet and doing a workup, ruling out medical issues, and then also working on the things that you might be able to change around the home, working with a trainer, working with a behaviorist to figure out how you rectify this problem as quickly as possible and as well as possible for everybody's benefit.
So both of you but you've both mentioned, eliminating or soiling outside of the litter box, and then spraying as a separate thing. Can you, I guess, talk about that a little bit? Because, I'm not sure that I would know how to recognize spraying versus peeing. Is there a big difference?
I think that they can have common roots. And Dr. J, I really want to echo what you said about really, if you've noticed a change in behavior, especially when it comes to litter box habits, the first thing I recommend to clients who come to me with that issue is go see your vet. I mean, and there's no way you're going to make a behavioral change if it's a medical issue. So you want to definitely take care of the medical issue first, just like you said. But back to your question, Mia, spraying, which is essentially marking, leaving a scent mark, can have a very different yet also very similar issue, like causes.
Nothing with cats is straightforward.
I know. Like,
they're a dichotomy covered in fur.
Oh man, it's like it can either be the same cause or a different cause. So house soiling, in terms of going outside of the litter box for elimination, and spraying, can both be stress related. A lot of times when cats will eliminate outside of the litter box, it's to put down their scent, which can be a self-soothing measure, depending on where it happens and when it happens. Like, oh, I need to put my scent in here because I'm really uncomfortable. I'm I feel insecure and I need to be surrounded in my scent to help me feel more secure. If it's, that's a stress related thing that can be done with simple urination. And then of course with spraying, it's a little bit more overt. Like, hey man, my scent is here. So, but, spraying can be in response to, again, that territorial insecurity. It can also be a self-soothing measure, but it can also be in response to, which is basically an amped up version of the same thing. Like maybe there are strays outside. Maybe there are, there's another cat and there are territory issues inside the home. Maybe you're bringing foreign smells into the home. I've been in a number of homes where the cats are marking by not necessarily the front door, but maybe the first closet in line after the front door. And then I go, oh, what's in here? And I open up the door and it's shoes. And the cat is spraying at the door because all those shoes are in one place and those shoes have brought in all these foreign scents.
That's so interesting.
Like, hey man, what are these foreign scents doing here? I need to reinforce my own scent here. This is my place. So, I think stress and territorial insecurity are a common factor when it comes to house soiling and some types of elimination and spraying. Dr. J, do you have anything to add on to that?
Yeah, it's funny. And, I guess as will come as no surprise, given what Mia said earlier, it's funny you're talking about the shoes and definitely on the scent. And I'm also thinking about the intestinal parasitic worm eggs that also people frequently track in on the bottom of their shoes. Because a lot of people think that, and I'm not going to hijack the podcast, but a lot of people think that indoor only cats are safe from intestinal parasites and fleas and all that other fun stuff. And that is one of the very easy and frequent common ways that these things get into homes and people don't realize. So maybe we should all start peeing around that first closet just to raise awareness. Or is that not how that works? Sorry.
You might end up with a bigger problem.
Yeah.
That's a totally different t-shirt, isn't it?
Not going to any house parties at your
But no, Marci, I think, you hit the nail on the head. It's a lot of this is frequently a lot of this is stress. And the thing that always amazes me, being in the ER and you get a cold snap, like you're humming along, you've got nice weather and all of a sudden you get a cold snap. And the number of urethral obstruction, and this is not me trying to hijack again, but the number of urethral obstruction cases that come in like triples. And there is a very common superstition within veterinary medicine, emergency in general, that when the weather changes, cats, like that's a stressor for cats. And stress can cause urethral obstruction and inappropriate elimination and marking and all that fun stuff. So just really, highlighting for people that cats experience stress. I think a lot of people think of cats as pretty chilled, laid back, sleeping all the time, low maintenance pets. And they're not. They're much more awesome than that, but they can experience stress. And so raising awareness of that and helping people, prevent that stress or mitigate that stress and find solutions, and the fact that, there's behaviorists and people out there like you, Marci, and others that are doing that and helping people is fantastic, because cats deserve the best lives possible. And a big chunk of that is decreasing the stress. And then it's amazing when you minimize cat stress through environmental enrichment and all these other things, how many of the problems get better or go away. So it's, stress is a key for cats.
I agree with you. And I think without fail, every single client I've ever had, I've talked to them about play. And I know that this is in the importance of play. And I know this is not a podcast about play, but I had this, I can't remember who initially told me about this analogy, but I use it all the time. And I think it really helps people visualize what cats are all about. So I like to think of cats as little stress buckets. And the stress bucket can contain, they're obviously very cute, furry, adorable stress buckets. But they're also predatory beasties. That's who they evolved to be. They're, these carnivorous wild beasts that we have in our homes. And so this stress bucket has this, level of stress in it. And as cats get older, their stress bucket shrinks. And every day, little things can go into the stress bucket. And that could be like, oh, the other cat gave me stink eye, little drop in the stress bucket. Oh, my person didn't clean out the litter box today, stress bucket. Oh, I saw this other cat roaming around outside across the street, stress bucket, stress bucket, stress bucket. And the level of stress bucket increases. And then at the point where it's overflowing, that's when you start getting behavior issues.
Yeah. And
that could be anything from I'm bored. So boredom is a huge stress that goes into the stress bucket. And if the bucket overflows, the cat's going to look for something to do. Hey, I'm going to knock this thing off the shelf. That's fun. Or it can be like, man, I am not feeling good. I'm insecure. I need to pee over here. So in order to reduce the level of the stress bucket to below the overflow point, we can do two things. We can either stop the inflow of stress, which would be, things to prevent the stressors from going in the first place. So it would be like, okay, so blanket rule, we clean out the litter box every single day. Then we don't have to worry about poop piling up in the litter box. Or maybe we use motion activated water sprayers around our house to keep those other cats from coming close to our house. So we keep the other cats away. The other thing is you can actually, with stress that has already entered the bucket, you can relieve stress. And that would be things like play, environmental enrichment. They're not going to address each individual stressor necessarily, but they will reduce overall stress level. So it's like a little spigot on that stress bucket instead of controlling the faucet of stressors that go into the bucket. But that's the way I like to look at cats. I mean,
as little stress buckets.
Yeah, exactly.
Really cute, furry stress buckets.
Yes.
Yeah, that fits. I think we've just come up with our new hashtag. I feel like John Oliver. Hashtag cute, furry stress buckets.
Exactly.
That'll go viral. I think somebody needs to actually animate that whole scenario that you just, that whole portrait painted for us. Yeah.
I did a little infographic for,
nice.
Instagram or something like that. It's a two-parter, but yeah.
Well, if it's okay with you, I'll link to it in the blog post for this.
Heck yeah.
Nice. Now, so this might be kind of a dumb question, although I'm told that the dumbest question is the one that is never asked. I don't think that that's actually true. But is there a difference between what is coming out in the spraying versus eliminating outside of the box?
You mean in terms of like what to differentiate between spraying and
right? Like is
peeing?
It? Yeah.
I mean, typically, not always, because again, cats are a dichotomy and they don't always read the rule books. Typically, with spraying, it's a lesser volume. Typically, again, and also depending on why they're peeing or how long it's been since they're peeing. And I think that's one of the big things. There might be a scent difference specifically because it is more about the marking.
I guess that's what I was wondering, if it was more of like spraying out like a pheromone or something.
Yeah. Well, and also, I mean, depending on the volume and the concentration of the urine, the scent, the smell of cat pee, for anyone that has cats or has been in a shelter or a hospital or cattery, whatever, if urine is really dilute or if it's really concentrated, it might smell different. Depending on the minerals that are in there, it might smell different. So there's a lot of different factors, but my suspicion, and I don't know. It's a great question, Mia, in terms of whether there's a specific pheromone, and maybe Marci, you know the answer to this, that goes more in the spraying one, that might be present. But I think for me, frequently, again, not always, it's typically lower volume, and oftentimes spraying happens on vertical surfaces as opposed to horizontal. Again, not always, but frequently.
Dr. J, I think you're right about that. It's I've tried to find out if there's a difference in the chemical makeup between urine that is deposited for elimination versus spraying. And I really can't find any. I haven't been able to find anything.
That'd be a really horrible study to try and conduct, wouldn't it?
Right?
Maybe that's why we can't find the information.
I know and cat pee is like the worst substance on the planet, right? So everybody's like, no, I'm not doing that.
Well, I mean, you need someone who's got a completely impaired olfactory sense to be like, yeah, that's me. That's my PhD.
I will say this though. If I go to Furry Friends or, the Humane Society, I volunteer with both of those rescues. And there is an intact male in there waiting to be neutered. Their urine smells completely different and completely it's
it's just not right.
Smell.
It's just not right.
Yeah, I know immediately. I'm like, who is it? Who is it? And it's not that they've sprayed. It's just that their urine smells rank. But in terms of what comes out and how it comes out, I think generally speaking, spraying can be lower volumes. Although I've seen cats spray outside, and it's like a freaking waterfall. Amazing.
Nice.
Turn on, what's the water gun that is like the
super soaker.
Yeah, the super soaker. What did you just do to my shed? I watched a cat spray our shed once, and it was like, oh, there's something medically wrong with that.
It's like a sprayer that's got diabetes.
Oh my God, yeah. But some cats do spray horizontally on flat surfaces, and then the reverse is too so true for cats. So most cats, when they're simply eliminating to empty the bladder, they they eliminate horizontally. But some cats, and I've known many, I have several clients like this, they are either what I call high peers, where they pee standing up. And so it comes out, it comes out horizontally on a vertical surface.
Right.
Or they are what I call elevator butts, where they start by squatting, and then as they urinate, their back end raises up. And so you get a nice little spray going up and down the side of the litter box. So yeah, it can be hard to determine what's going on. But then after you dig for more information and you find out what the stressors are, you can say, okay, this cat is spraying versus this cat is eliminating.
Well, and the other thing I would interject here, because I think it's a good, based on what we were just talking about, people frequently will email us, and I'm sure, Marci, you get tons of questions as well about this issue, about, where cats pee and how they're doing it and stuff. And really the first thing is we need data, right? Mm-hmm. To figure out what's going on. And so a lot of people don't realize webcams. Having a camera in where the litter boxes are. Now, if you're doing litter boxes correctly, you've got multiple cats, and so you've got multiple boxes all over the house, this could get expensive. But if there's one area in particular, or one cat in particular, that's going to a particular area, set up a webcam, set up a camera so that you can actually see what your cat is doing. Now, that's not necessarily going to help people completely diagnose it on, say, one video, but it adds to the body of data so that you and your veterinarian and your trainer and your behaviorist can start to really figure out what's going on and start to direct the workup in the most efficient manner possible. So huge shout out for cameras, for webcams to watch, to sound sick, but to actually watch cats pee and poo and how they're doing it. And there's tons of other uses for these cameras as well with cats and dogs. But this is a huge one because it's such a big problem for a lot of people.
I'll tell you about a cat who, his name is Theodore, who's such a cute, gorgeous, big tabby cat. So in his particular setup, he would go into the cat room at night. And it was a 5-cat household. It still is. And the girl cats would be switched out part of the time. The boy cats would be switched out the other half of the time because they weren't getting along. And the initial problem that we wanted to work on, though, was Theodore, who was house soiling in his cat room. And he would pee or poop, and it was mostly urine. Pooping is a little bit of a different issue, but it was mostly urine. And he'd urinate right by the door going into the cat room. And I mean, this cat room was pimped out with like cat shelves all over the place, cat trees, windows. It was beautiful. So they ended up installing some cameras, and it turned out that Theodore would start pacing in the room between like 3 and 4 in the morning. And he would start pacing and looking around the room and, looking over the food bowls, and nothing was there because the cats were only getting fed like 2 times a day. And I was like, after I saw the footage, I was like, oh my gosh, I wonder if this cat is hungry. So we set up some automatic automatic feeders that would go off in the middle of the night or just before he would get up to start pacing. And it took a couple of weeks of him to change that habit because he had been doing this for so long. But once he could steadily rely on that little snack, that 3 o'clock in the morning snack, he stopped the pacing and he stopped the peeing right in front of the door.
Nice.
So it was this anxiety that had built up around food because he was hungry. And then we also talked about increasing, more frequent, smaller meals throughout the day.
Yeah.
So that was one issue that we resolved with cameras. Another thing to look at when you're talking about cameras is, what is the cat doing after they urinate or defecate? If the cat is attempting to bury or cover what they just did, it's probably not a sign of marking.
Right.
Because a cat who marks wants everybody to know it.
There's no covering that up.
It's like, boom.
Yeah. No, it's a great point, and another benefit of the camera to be able to see that.
But also, just a caveat: not all cats will cover their pee or poop.
Yeah. There's jerks out of every group of people and everything, and so there are cat jerks.
Right.
But also, it's funny, Marci, because you talk about what they do afterwards, and then also, if you're lucky enough to catch something that happens prior to them marking or eliminating, that might be, you might actually catch the stressor. You might actually catch one of the other cats bullying them, or some other thing that's going on. So having like visual proof of all of these things is just, it doesn't hurt to have this data.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, did that answer your question, Mia?
Kind of. Yeah, sure.
Right. We gave you fair warning that we could talk about this stuff for hours. We're keeping it to, just dozens of minutes. So
no, you're doing great. But it's funny because you said, and sorry, you might hear Marshall, my pup, in the background snorting and sneezing. You had said, I think jokingly, about different jerks and everything. But I do think that a lot of people tend to think that if their cat eliminates outside the litter box, that they are being a jerk.
Yeah.
My guess is that it's their own guilt for doing something to make the cat want to be a jerk to them. Just a guess. But
cats aren't really spiteful. I mean, despite all the stuff they knock off the countertops and shelves and whatnot, they're to the best of my knowledge and from what other people have told me, cats aren't truly spiteful. That's, I think, pretty much just a human trait, for better or worse. Yeah.
Cats don't do things out of revenge. They don't have I don't want to say that they don't have the ability, because maybe they do and they just don't exercise it.
They're just too nice.
They very much live in the moment. They're not thinking about like, oh, my human did this, so I'm going to do this later.
Yeah.
This will really get back to them. It's not, they don't plan things out like that. It's not, and they don't connect things.
See, that's why there's no cat soap operas or like Cat Bachelor or anything like that. It would just be boring.
It'd be really boring.
There'd be no backstabbing. So where's the show in that?
Right.
So it doesn't seem like there's like a super easy way to tell the difference between spraying and eliminate. Why is eliminating a difficult word to say? Eliminating outside of the litter box, besides having a camera put on them, which I'm kind of like, it's just funny how many different scenarios have gone, vivid pictures have gone through my head during the recording of this podcast. Sorry, Marshall is climbing on top of me right now. So, I'm just thinking, like, setting up the camera. We have the Mazel's litter boxes in the bathrooms, and he usually only likes to go. Not only, but he likes to go to the bathroom when I'm going to the bathroom. So I'm just thinking about like the camera setup in there.
Yeah,
I mean, I love it. I feel pretty.
You shouldn't broadcast it to the web, Mia. That's the
well.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm worried about hackers trying to get in there and I don't know, hold it for ransom or something.
To determine whether your cat is eliminating outside the litter box versus spraying, it doesn't have to be a high-tech thing. And for me, most of what I do when I'm doing sleuthing is looking at where the cat is going. So if it's an issue where the cat is going right next to the litter box, I usually look at that as a potential litter box dissatisfaction issue. And we need to start looking at the litter box setup itself. If a cat is going on people's beds or in clothing, piles of clothing, especially
I hear
beds,
that a lot. I hear that all the time.
Beds and sofas, places where people have scent, then there could be an issue that the cat is having with that relationship, that particular relationship. Like, again, it's a self-soothing measure. Like, this person makes me feel a little bit insecure, or I need this person to feel a little bit more secure. So I'm going to leave my scent here and intermingle our scents.
Oh, that's kind of sweet when like,
it is.
And especially
might just be trying to bond with you.
Right.
Yeah, because a lot of people look at that as like, like my cat hates my boyfriend, so he's peeing on his stuff. Right. But in reality, it's like, maybe it is the cat saying, look, I mean, not these exact words, obviously, but like, I'm here too. And I want you to know this, and it could be a matter of like trying to, as Marci was saying, commingle those sins. Yeah. And so, again, they're not vindictive. And I think you're right, Marci, that, location can be an important clue.
Right. Cats who spray as the result of other cats roaming around outside the house, they typically spray on the exterior borders of their, where they can be in the house. So like near windows and doors, potential spots where they can see and smell other cats. So location. That's like one of the first things I look at.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. I really, I had never thought about any of that. I mean, I'm very lucky that Mazel doesn't seem to be marking anywhere or spraying anywhere. And hopefully it stays that way. But that's super interesting because there's strays all over my neighborhood for sure. And so I could see that being like a huge problem. But I love your sleuthing because location, it just makes sense that these would be clues that we can pick up and try to do our own sleuthing versus just kind of thinking it's a blanket, I'll call it, statement from the cat. Very interesting. That's awesome. Dr. J, you had said that spraying generally happens on more of a vertical, but Marci, you said that sometimes, with like the elevator peeing, that
elevator butt.
But again, that's probably still more in a litter box, right? Or at least just outside the litter box versus spraying.
Yeah. So when somebody says, "Oh, my cat is spraying inside the litter box," I'm like, "Oh, is it?"
Probably.
Yeah. Strange place to mark.
Yeah, exactly. Because your cat's scent is already there. So why would they actually?
That territory is kind of a given for them. They don't really need to.
Right. For those cats, what I recommend for people who have those cats, high-sided litter boxes, not ones with hoods, because most hooded litter boxes have a seam around the middle of it, and the pee gets in there, and then it can dribble out the side. It's gross. So what I usually recommend is just, hey, go to Target or Walmart and get a high-sided utility tub and keep the lid off, but cut like a U-shaped door in one of the sides. And there are websites that tell you how to do that. You can use like one of those heat guns. I don't know what they're called. I'm not a handy person.
Like a glue gun?
No, not a glue gun. that does the
opposite of a glue gun.
Yeah. you know what I'm talking about. It's like a heat gun, and it like can just melt away the plastic and you just boop.
A laser?
No, but it sounds great.
Yeah, I want one of these.
Or like, I know, like it's like a, superhero tool. Or like a Dremel tool. I think Dremel tools.
I got a Dremel. Yeah.
And even depending on how thick the Rubbermaid or whatever it is, even just a utility knife, like not an X-Acto, but a box cutter.
Right. Exactly.
Sometimes help. But then obviously people need to take care to smooth out those edges, just so the cat doesn't cut themselves going in.
Yeah. Like a little file, one of those metal files works great. Yeah. So those high-sided utility tubs work fantastic. And you can make, if you have kittens, you can make the U-shaped door really narrow. And if you have a more husky cat, you can make it a little bit wider.
More husky.
Husky cat. And the great thing about those boxes is that they really do contain the litter because they're high-sided and the litter doesn't go everywhere. And you don't have to keep the lid on it, which is nice so that the cat can see around them when they're in the box. And they're large. And the size of litter boxes is really one of the things that I think a lot of cats have problems with. So when somebody tells me that they're having a litter box issue, I look at their boxes and probably 75% of the time, the box is way too small. They've got like a 22-pound Maine Coon and they're using a litter box that's made for a kitten. And I'm like, oh my gosh, your cat can barely fit his butt in this box.
It's at that point, it becomes, consider yourself lucky that they occasionally get the urine or the poop in the box. Like
exactly.
That's a skill.
Exactly. Cats are talented.
Talk about a topic we could go on for hours about, right? The litter box size is like, it's funny because in a way I love that because it's frequently a quick and easy fix.
Yes.
Or at least part of a quick and easy fix. Right. But I would much prefer people just to know that from the outset, so you can avoid more of these problems, hence the whole preventive vet thing. But Marci, I love that we're talking about this. The size of the litter box is such a critical factor. And you walk up the aisle in any pet store and the vast majority of litter boxes that are there are just too small.
Well, litter boxes are marketed to people. They're not marketed to cats because cats have very limited purchasing power.
I don't know. I have questions about some of them.
But it's the humans. And so when you're marketing to a human, the human's going to be like, I want something small that that doesn't seem overwhelming. And then there's also price. Yep. Like anything that is specifically made for a pet is at least triple the price of a non-pet item that is exactly the same. So like if you look at the jumbo litter boxes in pet stores, they can be $40 or $50. Whereas if you go to Target or Walmart, you can buy the same size storage box for $10.
Yeah. And I love for cats that aren't, don't have elevator butt and we don't have to worry about the high sides. I'm a huge fan of those underbed, sweater storage boxes.
Exactly.
Because they're giant, they're huge, which is what you want.
Right.
Which is exactly what you want. I agree. You're right. And it's funny because people are frequently looking to save money. And if you can pay a quarter of the price or a third of the price for your litter boxes, hopefully that means that you can then afford the additional litter boxes, spend the same amount of money, get, 3 or 4 times the number of boxes, depending on how many cats you have.
Right.
And you're part of the way there. Yeah.
Exactly.
Treat yourself to a Dremel while you're at it.
Or one of those fun laser things
that we can't figure out the name for.
I don't know what it's called.
I like it. A listener is gonna write in, Marci. Trust me, a listener is gonna write in and be like, oh yeah, it's totally called the blah 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 whatever.
Yeah.
And we're gonna be like, oh yeah, yep. I remember that.
Yeah, we'll play a fun game called Name That Tool.
Name that tool. And it's not me for all you smart Alex out there.
Another T-shirt idea.
Exactly.
Nice. We're really coming up with lots of great stuff today.
Oh yeah.
So when you're thinking about litter boxes for your cat, the standard rule of thumb is the litter box should be at least as long as 1.5 times the length of your cat, not including the tail. So you want to make sure that your cat can turn around completely and dig and bury and have fun in there without touching the sides of the box. So when I look at like typical covered litter boxes, all I see is the blue porta potty that are at festival, because
great. Yeah.
Yeah. You go in there, you don't want to touch anything because it stinks so bad. It smells not just of, what people have left behind, but it also smells of that like artificial scent cover up, like that perfumey. Oh, it's so gross. And it's hot and it's stinky. And you just want to get in and get out, touch as little as possible and just run out. And a lot of times cats do that. They run out of their litter box.
Yeah, and there's a lot of times a lot of inappropriate or improper elimination in those porta potties as well.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. If it's not big, you have a little thing that hangs over the side, or watch your cat go to the bathroom. If they're perching on the side of the box with their paws, that could be a sign that either the box is too small or they don't like the texture of the litter. Like if your cat is not wanting to dig around, cats should love to dig around and investigate the litter. If your cat is doing as little touching of the litter as possible, you might be using the wrong litter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is a whole other podcast. Which is
awesome. Talk litter.
Let's talk litter. And Mia, when we do have those articles as well on the site, so we should include them here because it's fun. We've started touching on some of the factors that kind of can lead to stress or drive cats. I guess we've sort of maybe jumped a bit to the the sort of second topic of the elimination component, but it's really important stuff. The size of the box, the number of the boxes, the location of the boxes, the type of litter, the frequency with which you clean it. If cat owners could learn this stuff, like honestly, if you are listening and you are a cat lover, cat owner, or them, share this because like Marci is giving you gold here. We're touching on a lot of stuff. And if you can get the litter box set up right, you will probably prevent 60 to 80% of the issues right there.
And really, it does come down to stress. I mean, all these things that there are to dislike about litter boxes, those are drops in the stress bucket.
Yeah.
And, a lot of times people are like, man, my cat has never gone outside of the box before, and now she just won't stop going outside of the box. And I'm like, okay, well, that's because your cat's tolerance level has been reached. It's not that she loved going to the box before. It's just like she's decided she's not going to put up with it anymore. Like, I'm done.
I'm done, Karen.
I'm done. Yeah, Karen.
Well, this is awesome. And like we said, there's plenty more to talk about.
Well, the other thing I also wanted to say about litter box stuff is that cats are not only predators, but they're also prey, especially these smaller cats. And when they evolved as prey items as well for larger predators. So when they go to the bathroom in the wild, obviously there's not a bathroom, but they are looking for a place that is safe and where they can see everything around them. So they're not going to be ambushed by other predators. And so it's probably the most vulnerable position that they put themselves in, that they've evolved with. So when they need to eliminate in the home, they really need to find a place that is going to be safe and where they have a view. And again, this comes back to the location aspect for litter boxes. A lot of people think, I can squish 3 litter boxes here behind the sofa. No, you can't. First of all, your cat's just going to see 1 litter box there. Second of all, there are ambush locations above the top of the sofa and then around the sides of the sofa. And, if you are putting a litter box where there are blind corners and ambush points, your cats are going to be less likely to use those. So just think about it from a vulnerability aspect as well, where cats need to be able to see what's around them so that they can feel safe and not snuck up on when they're in the box.
It's interesting. And I'm glad that you brought that up because Mazel, my cat, the first time that he's actually semi-recently peed outside of his box. And the first time was when our dog Marshall snuck up on him.
Mm-hmm.
And so that makes sense. I mean, he and they're best friends, and Mazel sneaks up on Marshall all the time. So, it's kind of a game with them, but obviously that was something that stressed Mazel out. So that's a great point.
Yeah. And kind of a related topic is litter boxes should be located in socially significant areas of the cat's territory. And cats can, in a multi-cat home, cats can have overlapping territories. So in those overlapping spots, you want multiple litter boxes. You don't want to have all the litter boxes in one spot. Again, that's going to be viewed as one litter box with inconvenient plastic fighters between them.
Yeah.
And also, I have a lot of people who are like, oh, I have this whole litter box room down the basement. Well, your cat doesn't spend time down there other than to go to the bathroom. Meanwhile, in the rest of the cat's territory, you're missing out on giving that cat a way to leave their scent behind in a really appropriate way for the cat. So, for example, and I'll talk with you about I'll share a story about a recent client that I'm working with. She has 3 cats in a very, very, very small house. And she has all 3 litter boxes. Actually, it's 4 litter boxes, small litter boxes in the laundry room, which is very small and very hot. And one of the cats has been peeing all along the perimeter of the living room and in her bedroom. And the cat spends most of his time in the living room and in the bedroom. And I'm like, okay, well, the current litter box setup is not working for your cat. And this is what he's trying to tell you. So you need to move at least one box into at least just, the living room. And she is dramatically, just vehemently opposed to having a litter box in the bedroom. And she has been planning on giving this cat away once she resolves the litter box issue. Yet, every suggestion that I tell her, she's like, no, I don't want to do that. I can't do that. I won't do that. I'm like, well, you can't expect your cat's behavior to change if you don't change something in the cat's environment. So I don't think that cat's going to change his behavior unless she gets a litter box outside of the litter box room. And it's unfortunate because this is the way cats have evolved. And I'll actually mention one other thing is I don't particularly care for the term inappropriate elimination, because what cats are doing is, to them, they're eliminating perfectly appropriately. It's the cat's instincts to want to leave his scent in different parts of his territory, his socially significant parts of his territory. He's just not being given the opportunity to in a way that is agreeable to the human.
Right. It's only inappropriate in human terms.
In human terms, it's inappropriate. But for the cat, it's actually quite appropriate. Hey, man, this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Well, and not only that, it sounds like they're actually communicating with us. It's not even just they're doing it as I don't know, just something to again, it's not something just for them to do. It's them actually trying to tell us.
Yeah. I'm like, your cat is, gosh, you don't need me. Your cat is telling you what he needs.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't sound like she's listening to either one of you. So
it's really sad. It's really, most of my clients are great. And I love it when people are even if they're not enthusiastic about having a litter box in the living room, they're like, okay, I'm going to give it a try and see if that changes anything, because then you have more information. You've collected more data.
Right.
Whether or not it works, you've collected more data, and that can help inform things in where you go next, so that you can come to something that works for both cat and person.
Right. Well, I will continue to wish you luck on that person's side, but so you said that she's planning on giving the cat up after resolving the problem?
Yeah, so this particular kitty, I think she knows she doesn't have space in her house for 3 cats. And this cat came to her kind of in under strange circumstances. She doesn't want to try to rehome the cat until she can get his house soiling issue under control.
Right.
Because, nobody's going to take a cat who has house soiling issues. And but at the same time, she doesn't want to put a litter box in the living room and bedroom where he's going. And I've said to her, your cat is not going to resolve this problem with the same setup that you have. Therefore, you're not going to be able to give him away or rehome him and say he doesn't have a litter box issue. The only way you can give him away and feel good about being able to say, yeah, we resolved his litter box issue, this is what he needs, is to actually try different things.
Right.
So, we've talked about it. I think she sees the logic, but she's still really opposed to having a litter box in the living room. And I'm like, hey, do it while you're gone on vacation for a week. You don't even have to deal with it. Then the litter box can go back in the litter box room.
There you go.
Either way, you're no worse off than you were before. Really.
Well, all right. I think that we should probably wrap up this episode so that we can save some other good stuff for another episode.
Oh, Mia, we have so much more.
I know. It sounds like we've got a full season of just litter box topics to explore. And I'm so happy that you're going to be sticking around with us because I have. This actually brought up a lot more questions for me.
Good conversation should.
Yes. So there's a little teaser, an appetizer for you. So Marci, it is always wonderful to talk to you. Where can our audience find you if they would like to get in touch?
Oh, thanks, Mia. I can be found online just about everywhere. But you can go to my website. It's www.felinebehaviorsolutions.com. That's felinebehaviorsolutions.com. But I'm also on Facebook. I have both a page and a private group. So if you're having cat behavior issues and you're on Facebook, search for my group, Feline Behavior Solutions, and be sure to answer the 3 questions or else I won't approve you to get into the group. But I'm also on Instagram and everything else. But, Instagram and Facebook are probably the ones that I'm most active in. And if you need to message me about what's going on in your home with your cat, send me an email. You can do that through my website.
Yeah. And I'll make sure to put all your links in the blog post for this episode. But I also want to just let everybody know you've got a great blog. And you also are an awesome contributor, answering lots of great questions, over at another blog I found you on. You didn't even have to tell me. I found you. I think it's called The Conscious Cat. Is that right?
Yes. It's Ingrid King's, The Conscious Cat column. And she has a whole website. She's a behavior expert, and I do a monthly column. It's Ask the Cat Behaviorist with Dr. Marci Koski. And so you can write a question there, and then I will answer your question in the next month's column. That's been a lot of fun.
It's great.
Yeah. And then I'm going to be in Portland at the Popcats cat convention. I'm going to be giving a talk there Saturday, and then I'm going to be on a panel on Sunday, and that's coming up in September. You can go to popcats.com and look for the Portland event, and that's going to be August 28th and 29th.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And again, I will be linking to all of Marci's links in the blog post for this episode. Definitely make sure that you check out her website and get in touch if you need any of her help. Thanks again. Thanks for listening. If you've got a question for Dr. J that you want him to answer on an upcoming show, head over to preventivevet.com/pauseandplay and fill out our form. You'll also find our podcast archive, as well as links to everything that we discuss on the shows. While you're there, Sign up for our newsletter, which includes tips, alerts, and we even made sure to include some cuteness. It's a treat delivered to your inbox every other week. You can subscribe to Pause and Play with Dr. J on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and iHeartRadio. We'll talk to you again soon.